I learn all about and gather feedback from end users, software, websites, or products. I feel like a lot of people think that it's a really easy job, and it is easy to learn, but there is still some amount of effort involved in doing it well, particularly with interviewing and asking good questions.
Welcome to the Job Dictionary podcast. Today, I'll be interviewing Ava Lamb to learn more about what it's like to work in user experience research. And she specifically works for NCR Voyix. So, Ava Lamb, welcome. First of all, I would like to ask you some really quick questions that we do want to start every podcast asking our guests. So, to start it off, in your own words, what do you do?
Hard to summarize, but I'd say in short, I learn all about and gather feedback from end users of software, websites, or products in order to recommend changes or opportunities to designers or product teams. A feedback collector.
And then could you describe for me the type of company or industry that you're specifically in? And perhaps just give me a little context on the size of the company that you're in.
Yeah, so I work for NCR Voyix right now, which is a really large tech company. I think at least 15,000 employees. It's big. And we service like digital banking, retail spaces, so that's like grocery stores and restaurant spaces, all the different software products that are involved in those industries.
And where are you located?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Awesome. We love Texas. So when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Is this what you imagined you would be doing today?
Oh, definitely not. I wanted to be a vet. That was the dream when I was a
Oh.
kid. Work with animals. Can't say I'm doing that, but I have an animal, so that counts, I guess.
That's great. That is great. Could you tell me how long you've been working in this specific industry?
I've been in UX research for about 3 years now.
All right.
So it
That's
started
wonderful.
in the beginning of 2021.
Awesome. And what made you want to get into this field? How did you start in the area?
Yeah, so I first heard about user experience from a friend and was very interested in it when she mentioned it, but kind of forgot about it for a time. And then I wanted to change careers kind of in the middle of COVID. It was a early life crisis of I don't want to be doing my job anymore. What else can I do? And so I really wanted a job that was more people focused and to utilize like listening skills and empathy specifically. So I hired Kelsey actually at the Called Career, and through with her help kind of discovered and delved into UX research. And then through conversations with people who are in the role, I got really excited about it and was able to work my way into a job doing it.
That's awesome to hear. So with that in mind, I know you shared you wanted to go into vet school or work with animals. So what did you actually study in college? Because I'm hearing you had a career shift. I'm just curious to hear what you studied.
It had nothing to do with animals or UX research. I studied engineering in college, so civil engineering with a focus on structural, and did that for a couple years, and then just it wasn't the right fit long term, and made a big shift, which has been ultimately the right shift.
That's great. And so I'm a business major, and even within marketing, a lot of people are interested in user experience, user design. So I'm just curious, what are certain degrees or certifications that you think are required for getting into this job?
As far as degrees or certifications, I don't personally think that any are required. There are now some UX or user experience degrees that exist, which is really great. And so if you want to go into it, that's definitely an option. But beyond that, there are some certification programs, but not many that focus on research specifically. I think some can be helpful, but none are required or expected. It's still such a new job that you can come from all kinds of different backgrounds. You can get certifications, but they're not usually research specific, and it's definitely not a requirement yet. There's no standard for the field since it's pretty new.
Got you. Okay, so now kind of a Silly question. As if you were talking to a third grader, someone who does not understand at all what we're talking about, could you tell us some specific tasks that you spend the majority of your day doing?
Okay, I don't know how to explain this to a third grader. I am running different types of tests with different groups of people, and I'm asking them, what do you think about this? Let me know, do you like this? Do you not like this? And I'm collecting all of their feedback and I'm summarizing it to a group of stakeholders and saying, hey, this is what the people who are using your product, your website, this is what they really think of it. So daily tasks can be anything from trying to find the right people to talk to coordinating times to talk to them, to running interviews like this, moderating, asking questions, or I might be setting up unmoderated tests. So that just means that the participant takes it on their own time, and then I'll watch the recording later. Or after research is done, then I'll be analyzing, like going back and watching videos and summarizing or finding themes and then presenting the summary of research results. So I work closely with a whole lot of different people on the team within the company, and also work with the research team to help build out best practices and resources that we could be using to help build up our own practice.
Awesome. All right. Could you share with me some parts of your job that are the most exciting or the most interesting to you on the day to day? It looks like you do really enjoy working with people, and that's something that is a part of it, but I would love to hear that and anything you have to
Yeah.
share.
So I definitely personally really love running interviews like this, moderating interviews. It's a really fun challenge. It's usually energizing because I'm getting feedback that I want to hear, and the person I'm talking to is usually having a good time sharing feedback with me. Um, so everyone gets something out of the calls, and then I do also really love uncovering new findings from research results. It's really exciting, and getting to present them and like engage in conversation about what can we do with this? What does this mean for our product? It's really, that part is especially rewarding too.
That's great. And could you share a bit about the parts of the job that perhaps are a little harder, more emotionally challenging, maybe even more like boring for you?
Yeah, I'd say definitely one of the hardest parts about the job is the tedium of just like recruiting and finding the right people to talk to. Um,
Yes.
it's really frustrating. It takes a lot of time, and you often don't get a response, or you have to be that annoying person who's like, hey, remember me from a week ago? You want to respond to me now? Like, pretty please. Even today, I had 2 customers not show up to interviews. They just got busy and missed it. So it's just the frustration of actually getting to the part where you're sitting down with who you want to talk to. Um,
Yeah.
and I'd say, yeah, you're probably experiencing some of that with this project. Another difficulty is working with stakeholders within the company. So because UX research is so new, the company as a whole may not yet understand the value and may not even understand what it is. So you have many research teams, including my own, have to kind of fight to gain traction and understanding within the team and make a case for why it's valuable. So that can be a frustration too.
There's a lot of outreach going on in your job. That's really interesting. I actually would not have guessed that. I have worked with kind of user testing in the past in some of my courses. Is that something that's a part of your day to day? Just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. So we use user testing all the time. And it's actually far easier to recruit using user testing
Yeah.
than it is. A lot of our projects, we use a platform like user testing to recruit from a large pool of participants, and you use screener questions to zero in on who you want, which is pretty easy. But then if you want to talk to very specific people, like customers of our products, that's a whole different email chain. It's me asking another internal person if they can connect me to a customer, and then the customer has to get back to me, and there's a lot more scheduling involved there. Yeah.
Got you. All right, so we have gotten to the point of the interview where we're doing the rapid fire questions for you and about what you do. So, are you ready for it?
Let's go.
All right. So, what is a day in the life like in terms of wake up time, start time, end time, and breaks in the role that you have?
Okay. Wake up time around 6:30, but start time usually not until 8:30 or 9.
Okay.
So there's a good big long morning in there. And then I'm wrapping up between 4 and 5, usually with honestly a lot of breaks and flexibility throughout the day.
Good. So, is it a more slow role or a fast paced role?
It really depends on the week because I'll often have more than one project going on at once, and it just depends on the project stage. For the most part, medium pace is never crazy, but it can be slower some weeks and faster other weeks.
Awesome. What percentage of your time do you spend doing solo work versus meeting and collaboration? Let's say within the team. And because we do know that you interact a lot with the people you outreach to, but just curious, like within the team, are you working more solo or collaborating?
I do spend a lot of time collaborating with my team, but also a lot of solo time. So maybe 70% solo, 30% with my team. It's up to
Awesome.
you. I mean, I feel like some people on my team collaborate a lot more because they like it.
Okay, that's good. What do you wear on your day to day? Is it a very professional type of look or is it a more casual but professional type of environment?
Oh, it's very casual. I wear whatever I want.
Hmm.
I work from home, so unless I'm moderating an interview, and then I'll just put on a slightly nicer top or a boring nondescript top, and
Yes.
that's all.
All right. Which parts of the week or month, or even just throughout the year, are the busiest?
I wouldn't say there's a busiest time of year, but there's a slowest time of year.
Okay.
So things slow down towards the end of the year, around like November, December, January, just because of company funding and everything, and then they pick up in around March and stay fairly steady through the fall.
Awesome. And I know you mentioned you work from home. Are you fully remote? Is it a hybrid environment? Just curious. And what do you think about like the general roles? Do you think they tend to be more remote roles?
I do work fully remote, and I would say probably most of them are fully remote, most UX research jobs, although some of them I'm sure are in office or hybrid.
Awesome. And I'll ask this question a little different since you're not in the office and you really work from home. Do you feel at any point that you have to take work home, so work outside of your hours, to fulfill, the projects that you're working on, or does most of the work stay during your working hours?
Yeah, luckily for the most part, it's within working hours. It's pretty
Okay.
rare that I am working late or extra.
Awesome. And is there anything extra you would like to share about like the flexibility of this style of role? Um, I know you've touched on remote and just now this, but if there's anything extra you would like to add, let me know.
Um, there is within UX research, there are some people who freelance and don't work for a company full time, or they'll even be a contractor. So there's a pretty wide range of flexibility there in terms of even what kind of company you're working for, or if you are working for yourself.
And then could you tell me what tools or technologies do you use as a part of your job? I know we mentioned user testing. What else
Mhm.
would you add on to that?
Yeah, so we use a lot of video calling tools like Zoom or Microsoft Teams. You've always got your Word doc, Microsoft Word or Google Docs, PowerPoint for presentations are important, and then there's usually some kind of like note taking or virtual whiteboarding tool, such as Miro is a big one, or FigJam, which is part of Figma. It, it's just like the virtual whiteboarding side of Figma. And then all of our designers use Figma, so you have to be familiar enough with it to know how to share links, but you don't actually have to be able to design anything with it.
All right. Awesome. And now that we're done with the rapid fire, we have some more questions that you can go ahead and elaborate as much as you want on these. What do people tend to underestimate about this profession, if anything?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like a lot of people think that it's a really easy job, and it is easy to learn, but there is still some amount of effort involved in doing it well, particularly with interviewing and asking good questions. I think there's a lot more skill involved than you realize, and it has to be very intentional to avoid bias and to make sure that you're meeting all of your goals, that you're staying on track. You know how to deal with a variety of different participants. If they don't talk at all, all the way to if they're like way too chatty. It just takes a lot of practice and awareness. And I think that part of it can be underestimated. Sometimes people walk in and think, oh, I'll just do the interview myself. And usually they'll get so good amount of feedback, but there's definitely more nuance to being aware of the kind of bias that you can unintentionally have in the way you ask questions and avoiding that. So that's the big thing.
Got you. And on the flip side, what do people overestimate about the profession?
I think what people overestimate, particularly right now, is that it's actually pretty difficult to break into UX research right now, unfortunately. I think a lot of UX researchers have been laid off in the past couple of years, and the job market is both like saturated with applicants and there aren't very many positions open right now. So it's not impossible, but it is a challenge. And I was lucky enough to like get in before that got a lot harder, but that's just something that I've been hearing that a lot of people get really excited and then face a lot more challenges getting into the role than they expected.
I got you. And so, building right off of that, you are someone who came from a different profession. Obviously, you went into tech, you studied engineering, so I can see the connection into that. And considering, the fact that it is a more saturated market now, what would you recommend or what would you say is the fastest way to get into the profession? Especially as someone who maybe doesn't come from the traditional background that would want to get into this space, and just what would you recommend to get your foot in the door?
Yeah, I think what's going to be most valuable is learning what you can on your own because there's a lot of resources out there. So, reading books, reading blogs, watching videos, and then focusing on building your own portfolio, even if you don't have work experience, either tying what you have done in the past and explaining why it's relevant to research and what your skills are, or just like volunteering, creating your own project, even and executing it. And then, yeah, from that kind of building out a portfolio and using that to state your experience. And then it's going to also take networking and talking to the right people to get your foot in the door.
Awesome.
Listening
And
for any kind of particular certification.
okay. And so, considering, I know you mentioned there's a few schools that are offering this as a specific major, but it's not necessarily something people study to go into. What fields do you think are the most common that you see perhaps around you for people that are working in this profession? Do you think it's random or do you see a common theme?
Yeah, I'd say there are a few themes. So, definitely people coming from user experience design is a probably the most common starting point, and kind of understanding that space and that group first, and then zeroing in on research from there. But I'd also say people with backgrounds in education I've seen a few times, or academic research is also similar. But I think I can personally attest that like people can come from anywhere into this job.
All right. Thank you for answering that question. Now, could you share with me what does someone have to be good at and like doing to be good at this job? I know you've shared a bit of what you enjoy and the reason that it is something that comes easier and you just overall enjoy doing more, but if you could elaborate on that, it would be great.
I'd say first and foremost, like to be a good listener is key. You Some people are, some people it's really hard, and you just you kind of know if you're a good listener or not, or it's something you can work on too. But that's the biggest thing: being patient and genuinely wanting to hear what other people have to share. And I think what ties into that is being an empathetic person, and also curious. It takes a lot of curiosity to want to really understand someone else's experience and want to dig deep and be excited about it. So I'd say those three things are the biggest: the listening, empathy, and curiosity. And then, like a lot of other jobs, there's a whole lot of organization of like large amounts of information. Then, of course, communication and logistics, especially when it comes to recruiting that we were talking about earlier. Those are
Yes.
always going to be important to pretty much any job.
Yes. And with regard to those soft skills you kind of just shared, like having a genuine interest in learning and curiosity and just being a good listener, what are ways that you think people can actually improve those skills?
I think one way, the best way to gain those kinds of soft skills, maybe unfortunately, is just using them and getting experience and also watching other people who do it well, and learning from them, getting feedback. It's maybe if you don't have the job yet, then finding other ways to use those skills and practice them, or like interview your roommate or whatever you want to do to practice and learn. I mean, even I've mentioned already, there are lots of books and blogs and podcasts and everything about how to be a good researcher. And that's a great starting point.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on LinkedIn, I did see you are in a senior role, right? In user experience research. So, what is
Mhm.
the typical promotion path like from entry to the highest position you can hold in this specific role? And what is the average time spent at each level?
Yeah, I think it's a little hard to say broadly because it's again kind of a newer field and there's not exactly standards. But I'd say at NCR, at my team, you start at an entry level, like associate is another title for UX researcher. Um, and you might spend a year or two kind of in that level and then become a just user experience researcher would kind of be the next level up. And then you could become a senior UX researcher to a lead UX researcher who may be managing other people. And then we have a director of UX research. So that's kind of how it's laid out on my team. Um, it's hard to say as far as number of years, but maybe like 1 to 3 to go from
Okay.
associate to normal to senior. And then lead kind of just depends on if you have people available to manage, kind of.
Yeah. All right. So, going off of that, if you're comfortable to, and please be happy to share this in the most broad way that you feel comfortable with, what is the average salary for someone at your level in this type of role?
Yeah. So you can look up, there's a great report that's put out by a company called User Interviews every year that kind of lists average salaries for UX researchers specifically. And someone with my level of experience makes anywhere between 115 to 125,000 a year.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Could you now tell me, so when people in your field move on, they don't want to continue in user experience research, what kind of work do they often go into next? I know you've been in the field for a few years, so perhaps you haven't seen this, but if you have, are there any themes or can they just springboard right about into anything?
So I think I only know one person who has left UX research to go to another role, and she just slid directly into a UX design role, kind of realized that she was more skilled in design and wanted to do that rather than just research. So that's a common one. And then I would think also there are very similar roles called like service design. And then there's even a subset of UX research called research operations that really supports researchers, especially with handling things like recruitment and storage of information, sharing of information. So I'd say those are probably the most common, but I don't know many people who have left the job at this point.
Okay. Thank you. You mentioned a little bit earlier, specifically with those soft skills, that there's some podcasts and books you can read. Are there any specifics? So, books, resources, programs, certifications, you name it, podcasts that you recommend for someone who might be wanting to get into this profession, or any that you would not recommend?
Yeah, definitely. So I'd say the best starting point is going to be a book called Just Enough Research by Erica Hall. It's really short. It's so easy to pick up and read, very basic, like intro to UX research, what it is, and best practices. Um, and then I think it's helpful to have a general understanding of the user experience space as a whole. So books like The Elements of User Experience by Jesse James Garrett, or Don't Make Me Think is a really famous one by Steve Krug. Those are great books to just even help build vocabulary around the team and kind of who you'd be working with and what you'd be working with. Um, and then I also really love blogs. There are some excellent UX research specific blogs and newsletters out there. So Dovetail is a big platform. It's called for research repositories, which is essentially just storing and sharing research data. But they have a blog called Method and Madness that is excellent and just has a lot of very specific information around how to be a better researcher and different methods you can learn. And then, User Weekly is another one that just kind of compiles resources from around the internet that are around UX research and shares recent trends and articles, podcasts. There are a lot of UX research podcasts out there. I haven't
Yeah.
listened to many personally, but they're out there. Go listen. You can learn a lot. And it's, again, free or books are cheap. And then another really fun thing you can do if you want to learn more about UX research is you can actually sign up to be a participant in research studies and make a few dollars here and there. So D-Scout is one that is like an app, and it's almost like Instagram or something where it's a feed and you can scroll through and apply to join studies. And they're usually interesting and fun, and it kind of gives you a window into what these tests are like and what kind of questions they ask. So definitely recommend that. You'll see certification programs like General Assembly is a really popular one, and I know some people who have done that and have gotten a lot out of it. But again, I feel like those are more focused on UX design as a whole and not specifically on research. So for
Got you.
myself, I found books and shorter courses like Interaction Design Foundation is they offer shorter, very specific courses. I found those to be more useful than something full blown like General Assembly. That's just more my personal opinion. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That's a lot of resources. So appreciate you for sharing all of that. So we have gotten to the point where we are going to do our final question of the day. Could you tell me what you would tell your younger self who was just getting started in your career? How would you approach getting into this profession?
I love this question. Maybe I'll answer the first part first because that's more fun. But like, what would I tell my younger self if I was actually like getting started in this, I would say like congrats, because you found a really, really cool job that's really fun and interesting. And it pays a lot and has good benefits and excellent work-life balance to boot. So have fun and enjoy.
I'm actually pursuing a certification in tech, so hear all about it, hear about all the benefits. It is a great industry to be a part of. And thank you so much for everything you shared about your career in this role today. We are so, so grateful to have had you on this podcast. That is going to conclude our interview for today. Thank you, Ava.
You're welcome.
You just got one episode closer to learning about the world of jobs out there. To explore the rest of our career categories and find your best fit, go to jobdictionary.com to sign up for the beta users waitlist. Then subscribe here to find the next episodes coming out this week. And as always, drop us a comment, review, or message to let us know how we can better attune our episodes to your specific needs. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, X, Threads, Pinterest, and wherever else you're on socials to go get our short, snappy preview reels that expose you to new job options every day. Because here at Job Dictionary, we believe your big aha moment can be just one scroll away. Go check it out and get out there. Cheers!